Welcome to Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Ritchie, who has the day off, and I consider myself a very lucky gal today. They're all my favorites, but this one especially so. Jordan Uhl is here. I love your insight. I love your smile too. You just seem like a happy-go-lucky guy, and it lifts me up, and I want you to know that. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I'm always happy to do the show with you.
No, that's sweet of you. I bet you say that to everybody else too, but I don't mind
Nobody
it.
else.
Nobody else? I'll take it. I'll take it. I hope you were well. We have a lot to get into, some late breaking news as well, Jordan. So I think we ought to get after it. We'll begin with the district attorney of Fulton County. There she is. You know the face by now, even if you don't live in Atlanta proper. Fani Willis has learned her fate, removed from the Georgia election case against incoming President Donald Trump. Here's what the State of Appeals Court said on Thursday. They removed Willis, the Fulton County DA, from the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and others, but they did not dismiss the indictment, leaving the future of the prosecution uncertain. Now, the case against Trump and more than a dozen others has already been largely stalled for months while the Georgia Court of Appeals considered the pretrial appeal. Previously, bringing up to date, a grand jury in Atlanta indicted Trump, 18 others, in August 2023, accusing them of participating in a wide-ranging scheme to illegally try to overturn Trump's narrow 2020 presidential election loss in Georgia. 4 of them have since pleaded guilty after reaching deals with prosecutors. Trump and the others have pleaded not guilty, the AP with the reminder there. Trump and some of the remaining defendants tried to get Willis and her office removed from the case and to have the case dismissed. They argue that her romantic relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, created a conflict of interest and that she made improper public statements about the case. Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee ruled in March that no conflict of interest existed that should force Fani Willis off the case. Trump and the others appealed that ruling. And so here we are. Now, the new ruling means it will be up to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia to find another prosecutor to take over the case and to decide whether to continue to pursue it. Though that could be delayed if Willis decides to appeal to the state Supreme Court. That is presumed to be the case. It's the latest legal victory for Trump as he prepares for a return to power in a second term, further underscoring how criminal cases that just 1 year ago threatened to impede Trump's political career and put him in personal jeopardy have now tilted in his favor, just like that. So the development now comes weeks after Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith abandoned 2 federal prosecutions against the incoming president, and as sentencing in a separate hush money case in New York is indefinitely on hold as a result of Trump's victory in November over Democratic President Joe Biden. Even so, the practical consequences for Trump may be minimal, given the virtual impossibility of trying to proceed with a criminal case against the sitting president, no matter the supervisor of the prosecution. But there are 14 other defendants who still face charges, and that has particularly piqued my interest, Jordan. This case, I'm not going to say Fani Willis botched it. I know the prosecutor. I consider her a friend even. Uh, I don't see what she saw in Nathan Wade, but now we're kind of drifting off course. That doesn't quite matter. I don't mean to disparage Mr. Wade, but he seems like he's going through some things currently. So back to Fani Willis. I don't think she botched this case, but what about these other defendants, including the ones, Jordan, who pleaded guilty, said we did it? If the case against everybody else goes away, and are you a lawyer? I don't know if I should even pose this to you, but well, we'll pretend we are, okay? I don't know that these defendants don't have a good case to say, well, then how are you going to proceed against us, but not the so-called mastermind of this thing?
Yeah, it presents a very difficult legal question that we shouldn't even be in the first place. I think if you want to look at this relationship, that to me, and I think probably to most people, doesn't raise any ethical flags over the case itself. That's a personnel matter in that office. And they're seeking, and they were successful, at least up until now, the Trump team, in exploiting that to get her off the case. So, like you say, she can appeal. I hope she does, because she's going to be vigilant. And given what we know about Georgia's state government, it probably will not, if she is replaced, it probably will not be with someone as steadfast in seeking justice in this case. It'll probably be someone who's going to be more sympathetic to Trump, if not outright deferential. So
Yep.
this whole case could be upended over something that I think we are in alignment is just a office personnel matter. Like, take that up with HR. This
Thank you.
doesn't mean the case was
Right.
botched, like you say. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right. Um, why is this Republican friend always calling me? I'm not even sure we're friends. He called me again this morning. Did you hear the news? Fani Willis is off the case. And I said, well, this is much ado about nothing. Okay. I'll sleep with who I want to sleep with and still be able to do my job. And he said, then what? You're going to Me Too them? And I said, well, if I want to sue, I'll sue as well. But that's not really what we're talking about here. He didn't even work at her direction, yes, as her fundamental W-2 employee, no. But even that doesn't matter. What does that have to do with the crimes that are alleged have been perpetrated by Donald Trump and others? I contend nothing. I also live in Georgia and I know exactly. It's like this fortune, was it Miss Cleo who could tell everyone's future? Did she get, was she accurate? I'm not sure. I usually am. I can tell you that this case will not see the light of day. I don't even know if they will appoint someone. If they do, it'll be someone who uh, goes and plays cards with MAGA people. It's not going to see the light of day. And it's a shame because if it were against you, or particularly someone of my hue, I don't know what took so long. 3 years, an indictment comes down, a lot of fanfare. I do know what took so long, and I'll have you comment on this, Jordan, because this is a white man who is running for president and who has a huge following. And so the law, equal justice for all, it's not really true. They wanted to make sure every T was crossed, I dotted. And by the way, I didn't want to kind of tiptoe into an indictment, which when have you known a prosecutor to tiptoe in to an indictment unless it's this rich guy who said, hey, I can walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it. So this whole thing is their fault too. But I'm so angry and I don't want to hear anyone ever again talk about equal protection, equal justice under the law. That's a lie and it's always been a lie. It's not just a recent thing. I'll let you comment. I don't even know if I made sense, but I think you know where my heart and soul is, my passion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're seeing is yet another example of a two-tiered justice system. There's one for the rich, the powerful, the wealthy, the well-connected, and then there's one for everyone else. And you and me and most people watching this, I maybe all people watching this, are in the regular justice system. But people like Trump never face accountability. I mean, think about how many people were involved deeply, profited off of, even caused the financial collapse of 2008. The excess, the greed, the corruption that went into that. And then you think about the scale of the devastation, people losing their homes, losing their retirements,
Awful.
spiraling into bankruptcy or losing everything that they had because of this greed. And who got punished? Who? Nobody.
Mhm,
Two people went to jail for it just, and they were low level people.
mhm.
That's it. And like when you see something like that, that was what was such a formative experience for me and really shaped my politics now. And then you see
Wow.
things like this. Of course, Trump's getting off. Of course, nothing's happening to him. He hasn't really faced repercussions, serious repercussions, for anything that he's done. You're seeing these cases drop. Jack Smith is resigning. It's frustrating. So as it relates to Fani Willis, yeah, like I said, it's a personnel issue. I think 90% of this is Trump and his team
Hmm.
exploiting that relationship to get him
Yeah.
off. But there's like 10% of it where it's like, if you're in that position, you have to recognize they're going to come after you with everything they have, and they're going to look for even the tiniest slip up that they're going to try to use to wriggle out of it. And that's what they did.
Yeah. And it's a shame too, right? Because you shouldn't have to be perfect in order to just get a shot. And I mean figuratively, please don't, I don't need MAGA coming after me at prosecuting someone who was on tape saying what he said and fake electors and everything else. Okay. We know what the whole thing was. The bug-eyed lady, Sydney, what's her face, who was going to release the Kraken, all this stuff. It was so loud and proud. And yet here we are. And the sad thing is, you knew it and I knew it. And we don't have to be Miss Cleo, right? That's the sad part. We as Americans know that what applies, what is applicable to us, ain't never going to come. The chickens aren't going to come home to roost, is it? In Trump's yard, if you will. And I think it sucks, but hey, I guess until we stand up and are just as loud as people. We shouldn't have to do this. People who lack integrity are just going to do what they do, but we have to. We have to dispatch and be done with this kind of thing. I'll give you the last word.
I think that's right. It's frustrating, and at some point you'd like to see him face any repercussions. It's hard to look at everything he has done and gotten away with, not just in his political career, but his entire career. At worst, paying fines. And you'd like to see something, but I just don't know how you can look at his entire history and think that
Right.
something big is coming for him. So it's also part of it. Networks like MSNBC have been feeding people this myth that justice, maybe even a jail cell,
Thank
is
you,
just around the
Jordan.
corner, and that is just
Thank
so
you.
far detached from reality.
Yeah, so far detached. And I wish you just, can you square up with us? Keep it a buck. Let us know really, because there's people out there, liberal friends of mine, white women, who will call me up and say, yeah, this time it's really, he's going to get it. And I don't want to burst their bubble. Sometimes I do if I'm in a bad mood and I say, dream on, okay? It's never going to happen. But other times I let them just float through this privileged, rosy colored glass view they have. We'll move on. Ain't nothing rosy about this next one. Nothing. Okay, this is sick. And I do mean sick. A man gets 20 years after having 50 men sexually assault his wife. I don't understand why it's only 20, but let's get into the details, shall we? The trial surrounding the perp and Giselle Pelicot's story has taken France and the world now by storm. Court has finally sentenced Dominique Pelicot to 20 years after he admitted to drugging and sexually assaulting his wife, Giselle, for nearly a decade and inviting strangers to join him. Here's what happened leading up to the massive trial. Dominique Pelicot, 72, who admitted to drugging his wife for almost a decade, inviting dozens of strangers he met on the internet to join him in violating her, was convicted on Thursday of aggravated sexual assault and other charges and sentenced to the maximum of 20 years in prison. New York Times with the details. That's the max for this filth. From the moment of his arrest in late 2020, Mr. Pelicot has admitted to crushing sleeping pills into his wife's food and drink before he and other men sexually assaulted her as she lay nearly comatose in their bedroom in the town of Mazan. He took thousands of video clips and photos of the encounters, which the police later used to identify and track down other perpetrators. Court also convicted the 50 other defendants, most of them on sexual assault charges. In addition, Mr. Pelicot was found guilty of sexually assaulting the wife of one of the men who was convicted and of taking and distributing illicit photos of Ms. Pelicot, their daughter, Caroline, and 2 daughters-in-law. Sick. Mr. Pelicot, 72, who has divorced Ms. Pelicot, who has divorced her husband, waived anonymity to make the trial public, and her poise and courage have made her widely admired in France. Her face has appeared on nightly newscasts, the front pages of newspapers, graffitied walls, and signs held up by protesters around the country. She has renounced her former surname, but used it during the trial. Let's get to the sentencing. Most of the other defendants received sentences of 8 to 10 years. Not enough. Less than the 10 to 18 years terms that the public prosecutor had recommended. Jean-Pierre Marechal, who pleaded guilty to following Mr. Pelicot's model and drugging his own wife, sexually assaulting her, was sentenced to 12 years. Prosecutor had recommended 17. Some of the men will go free because of time already served. French news media have labeled the 50 other defendants Monsieur Tout le Monde. I'm sure I butchered it, but I'll give you the translation. Mr. Everyman, because of how varied and ordinary they appear. Short, tall, flabby, lean, clean-shaven, bearded, bald, ponytailed. All but 14 were employed in jobs that reflect the spectrum of middle and working-class rural France. Truck drivers, carpenters, trade workers, a prison guard, a nurse, an IT expert working for a bank, a local journalist. Every man. Outside the courtroom, Ms. Pelicot expressed profound gratitude for the support she has received from across France and beyond since the trial began in September, and said she had never regretted opening the trial to the public. She added in her remarks after the sentencing, "I also think of all the families affected by this tragedy. Lastly, I think of the victims, unrecognized, whose stories often remain hidden. I want you to know that we share the same struggle. I want to express my profound gratitude to all the people who supported me during this ordeal." Ms. Pelicot said, "Your testimony moved me, and I drew from it the strength to come back every day to face the long days of this trial." I should not be surprised by the depths of darkness that emerge in our so-called humanity. Shocking headlines, shocking details, and that there are 50 others that we know about who went along with this sick, twisted, torturous game is of real concern. Mr. Everyman is everywhere then. And we're all subject to this kind of, well, it's terrorism, this fight against women. I perhaps don't have the right to comment on this, Jordan, because I didn't sit through the trial, but I don't understand only 20 years, but we can chalk that up to the law. But I certainly don't understand when a prosecutor says, look, this is what we're going for in this case. And a woman has bravely stepped forward and said, this is what I endured. And there are pictures out there and filth that I did not consent to. Why a judge would somehow give, I call it leniency. What say you?
It does seem like that. Neither of us are experts in French law, but it does seem especially lenient based on what the prosecutors were suggesting. And I think there's a systemic failure there, but there's also a failure with the police, because that guy, Dominique, the husband or former husband, was caught years ago filming up people's skirts. Police caught him. He was arrested and charged, and he got let go with a really small fine. I think it was around 100 euros. And had they done anything else, they could have, had they investigated, looked into something else that he did, they could have found, I was reading in the reporting that he had assaulted somebody years prior to that. And all of these facts, all these details were out there, and they just never bothered to follow up with it. They just let this guy go, and he was responsible for more and more and more harm. So it's shocking and it's disgusting, and I think her bravery and courage is impressive and something that we should all admire.
Yeah, I agree. And let that be a lesson. We're going to have to protect ourselves, women, because even when the worst is discovered, it's on, the footage is there. The footage is there. We still have some empathy, some grace for the perps in this case who conspired to assault and violate our bodies. This is a disease, a sickness, and not the kind where you excuse the perpetrators, but it is infecting. This is France, but let's not act like we don't have the same kind of version of an assault on women over here. Sick. I wish her the best. Thank you, Joy Reid, for saying the quiet part out loud and calling the Democratic Party to task. And yes, you, Nancy. I hope she's recovering, but we do need to get into this. Joy Reid calls out the Dems for blocking women of color from leadership. Listen to this.
Why not have an AOC and a Jasmine Crockett who, quite frankly, are never scared
Never.
of Donald
and
Trump or
communicate
Republicans
with regular people about regular
Absolutely.
things. I mean, AOC and Jasmine Crockett are probably two of their best communicators. And, you know, you have people that have the skills, but they're not pushing them forward.
That's right.
You know, Ayanna Pressley is one of your strongest communicators. Why isn't she pushed forward? Do you also feel that these women of color, these young women of color, are getting set aside in a party that during this campaign, and this was Biden's team that Harris took on, refused to pay for the ground game? They didn't want to give LaTosha Brown and Black Voters Matter any money. They wanted to give it to these big, giant consulting firms run by mainly majority folks who made a lot of money.
The party needs to concede, retire, enjoy the rest of your life.
What is about
and
this?
let them be
This
leadership.
gerontocracy seems like it's intractable. There's a frustration with the sort of creaky way the DNC operates. But it is run by donors and consultants and people who are locked into the old ways of doing things.
It's run by white people. That's the translation. Thank you, Joy, for saying the quiet part out loud. The power structure. It wants to stay in power. It wants to control the money. And while blacks like Jasmine Crockett and AOC Brown are allowed to chill for the party, they're allowed to be front and center. Their popularity is used by the party. Oh, whoa, when it comes to leadership, wait your turn. That never comes. So Joy Reid took a veiled jab at Representative Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday night, hours after the former speaker thwarted Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's really still the speaker, and we need to go on and say that, okay? I'm sorry, Hakeem Jeffries, but she's still pulling the strings. She's still the one that says what goes, and everybody capitulates. But not Joy, not on this night. So let's talk about AOC. Young, more than capable, 35, seeking to be the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee in the next Congress. Makes sense to me. For a time, she appeared to have the support necessary to earn the position of ranking member. But Pelosi, 84 years old, began working the phones, using her still substantial influence on behalf of Representative Jerry Connolly, the Democrat out of Virginia, to whip votes for him. Connolly is 74. Revealed in November that he has esophageal cancer. During Pelosi's attempt to boost Connolly, she suffered a fall in Europe and underwent hip replacement surgery. Democratic conference voted for Connolly 131 to 84. Mediate with the reporting. So even perhaps while she was under anesthesia, and again, we wish her well. I hope she's recovering. She had enough power that she didn't wield for something. I don't believe, okay, for Mr. Connolly, Representative Connolly. She really did it against AOC. That's what she did. And people fell in line. Something that has been touted as one of her best attributes. She can whip votes, she can figure it out, she can get legislation passed, including Obamacare, and on and on and on. But in this case, she used her power, a woman who rose to one of the highest offices in the land, to trip up a 35-year-old, brilliant, promising talent who has passionate and the commitment to get it done. We see you. Representative Jerry Connolly called BS on the suggestion that there were generational overtones to his matchup against AOC, again, 35. I've never had a shot, said Connolly, 74. This is my shot, irrespective of my age. Again, I got to pause right there. It's my turn. We heard that with Hillary Clinton. It's my turn. Who says who? Let's just see where this thing goes. It might be beautiful. What do you mean, my shot? You don't just get it because you've waited your turn. Just like they're not going to give it to AOC. Give? Nah, not for her. Never had a shot. I have something to contribute still. Okay, so contribute. So does AOC. And I want to do it. Just to note, AOC is close to 13 million followers on Twitter. Connolly has, well, he must be competitive, right? What is it? 82,000. She was also the first user to hit 1 million followers on Blue Sky, which Connolly has yet to join. But it's not a generational thing. It's just, he'll get around to it. Joy Reid reacted to the loss by declaring that at this point, almost nothing the Democratic Party does makes any damn sense. Unless you follow the money, Joy. They're hanging on to their gerontocracy and consultant class at the expense of their most loyal voters. And let's just be clear, they'll be fine while our communities pay the price. Indeed. To make matters worse, even Trump felt sorry for AOC. Give me a break. Posting, really too bad that AOC lost the battle for the leadership seat in the Democratic Party. She should keep trying. Someday she will be successful. I say he's a jerk. He's a jerk. And, doesn't he have something better to do? Like pick another person accused of assault to join his cabinet or something? Stay out of this. You're not sad for her. Congresswoman herself saw this and posted, quote, damn, it's bad when even Trump is feeling bad for me. She's smart. She used it to her advantage. I like it. Okay. So the ugly truth, the elite. Oh, and about the money that Joy talked about, Jordan. I'm here in Atlanta. I can tell you that's true. And there was a really nasty call. I can tell you that with Kamala Harris, the now defeated presidential one-time candidate, and members of the caucus here. Not happy about the things that went down. But from what I learned, you had the Biden faction over here who was forced out and not happy, thought they'd get 4 more years of profit and money and prestige. And suddenly they're pushed out. And the compromise was, well, they're going to run the ground game still. And you know what that was about. But what do you make of Joy Reid saying something? I'm not even going to call it courageous. I'm happy she did it. But she's saying something that is so obvious. Black women can be used to build this party and push people over the finish line until they want to take a leadership role. And people of color, marginalized communities, AOC, more than deserve the shot, more than have the credentials. Will they ever, how do you get out of this mess if you're the party? Because we see clearly what's going on.
Well, this party has shown time and time again that they do not care or have a plan for the future. And certainly within that, bringing in a younger and more diverse crowd. You can look at their leadership. You can look at who they get behind, who they support, who they protect. And it is more often than not wealthy, old, and or white politicians, especially old white male politicians. And that's what you're seeing here. The role of chair of oversight is asking questions. And you could probably count on one hand, maybe two, the number of Democrats who have shown themselves to be excellent in committee hearings. AOC is one of them. Jasmine Crockett, who she mentioned, is another. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley. Jamie Raskin is pretty good, and he did get a committee chair seat. What is the reasoning behind somebody who currently has throat cancer, something that could literally inhibit his ability to speak, serving in a role that relies on you being a successful orator? if not to protect the powerful and eliminate any sort of progressive advancement in Congress. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense. But Pelosi undermined AOC in part because she wants to keep the progressive movement at bay to protect the donor-backed politicians.
That's what it is. Because here's the thing. They'll tell you that they have to protect the party from certain members because the progressives can't win. They're not the majority in America. It's a lie. Things naturally ebb and flow, and it was moving in that direction, you hear? Okay? And you know that if progressives take over the party, they're not going to go along with the status quo and the California big money donors who own things. That's why it's like whack-a-mole. Whenever one pops up, they try to beat it back early. Couldn't do it with AOC. Lightning in a bottle. But they did it here, even under anesthesia. It is sick. This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie today. Jordan Uhl joins us. I even like your shirt. What's on your shirt? Are those leaves? Are those leaves on your shirt? It's like cooling out. You're just enjoying yourself. It's relaxing me. I find it relaxing. I don't know if that's weird. Great. Okay. We'll get to what you're up to, the rest of what you're doing, Rebel HQ and the like, when we come back. This is Indisputable. Stay with us.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crockett.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. I'm Sharon Reed, in for Doc, who has the day off, and Jordan Uhl is here. One of our favorites, one of the best in the business, giving commentary. So we appreciate you, Jordan, being our guest co-host today. You're blushing. I didn't know why you're blushing. It's true. You know, strong following. People love you. Let's get to some of the comments because we love you guys too. Weighing in on the Fani Willis saga, prosecutor who was overseeing the election interference case here in Georgia, is ousted. Supreme Court saying, "Nah, you're not able to do this." Not the Supreme Court, but the other body who was overseeing the the appeal by the defense in this case, saying no, she should not continue because of an affair she was having. God forbid, a grown woman having a relationship with a man. At any rate, Salvi Dragon says Fani Willis gets removed for conflict of interest, but Clarence, as in Thomas, still sitting there making decisions based on his interests. Make it make sense. We can't. Clarence Thomas, of course, different bodies, but it's the same thing. It's okay for you guys, but it's not okay for a grown woman to have a boyfriend, I guess. Nina R. says, how do we even find a reason to hope anymore? This man is constitutionally disqualified from holding office, and nobody is stopping this. Well, you're right. In fact, the Justice Department didn't even want to do anything, okay? Reluctantly. Merrick Garland, is that his name? Okay. I don't really remember his name much because what has he done? Except slow walk everything. They call it careful, being prudent. No, it's called cowardice. If you're going to be the Attorney General of the United States, then you need to rise to a different level and be beyond reproach, stand above. You're higher than anybody else, and you're going to do what's right, not what's careful, overly cautious. Going to do what's right. And I don't think he's done it. Yeah. So, no, they didn't want to. That's why they waited so long. Even though we all watched what went down on live television January 6th, and we all watched the raid on Mar-a-Lago, where Donald Trump had documents hidden under the toilet or wherever in the bathroom. Don't sue me, okay? It was in the bathroom, the tacky gold bathroom. Can the team confirm that I already know it was tacky, but was it gold? I don't want to get sued by you-know-who, okay? So somebody, if you could get back to me, I'm sorry to create extra work, but you know he's very litigious. Look what he's doing. Anyway, back to your comments. That ex-husband in France gets 20 years for really torturing his wife. Sexual assault. He drugged her and he sexually assaulted her and invited 50 other men to do the same. He gets 20 years. So let's see what you have to say about that one. Electrified Chicken Dragon says, I remember when this first came to light, Giselle is a hero. That's the wife, ex-wife, to all women. Her grace and bravery in the face of all this is incredible. Any of those sentences are unbelievable to accept. It has helped women to be able to come forward and place the shame where it belongs on the men who committed these heinous crimes. And you know what? We don't say this enough, and I don't know how you feel about this, Jordan, but the fact that I agree that survivors should be able to come forward or not. They should be able to remain anonymous. But let's talk about why the need would even arise. Because we're so ignorant in this society across the world that there's a stigma on the people who had a crime happen to them. So I think she's incredibly brave to say, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I hide my face? You should hide your face. What say you, Jordan? Am I just going off? Maybe I'm angry. Am I hungry today? But it's just some of the stuff is triggering me.
Yeah, I guess there's multiple different ways of looking at it. I think the way people react, and you have a rise of, not, I wouldn't even say a rise. It's always been prevalent, but they're more organized online.
Yeah.
But this misogynist
Thank
male
you.
movement, they're never going to sympathize with her.
Yeah.
And I think just you're subjecting yourself when it's that high publicity. There's always crazies out there. You just never know who's going to reach out and try to make your day miserable or harass you or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think it's totally within their right to remain anonymous, but I understand why in this case she wouldn't want to.
Same. Fani Willis now comments on that. Drew Mario, all the defendants' attorneys on planet Earth won't save that man, Judge Jesus Christ. Bruce Allen Ross says we knew everything would go away if he got in again. It's gone away. And Busy Bee, Nancy putting up a 74-year-old with cancer is just cruel. And look, we're not against cancer survivors or saying that people can't do the work, talking about Representative Connolly, who's now in a leadership position, taking away beating out AOC while the cards are stacked against her. But it's just ludicrous. And stop meddling. Why doesn't it say Hakeem Jeffries did it? It says Nancy. Another woman. Can you believe this? Come on. One more for you, and then we'll get more comments after we take another break. Purple Rain Dragon says, how can someone subject their spouse to this? Talking about the disgusting, convicted criminal in France who sexually assaulted his wife. Can't understand it. We're supposed to be able to trust our partners. Supposed to. Not in this case. You're right. Okay. We've had some heavy stuff, which probably doesn't, I don't know. Well, yeah, I'd say Nancy is behaving with some Karenicity as we lead into this next one. You know, the other heinous stuff, I'm not even put that on the Karen stuff. But Nancy Pelosi is behaving like a Karen. You got there, now blocking someone else to protect what's yours. You're selfish, you're inconsiderate, and Karenicity. It still rules the land, this disease. And we're still asking, okay, or making the statement, the declaration, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Detroit is one of Delta's largest hubs. We do have a lot of connections. If you don't have a connection and someone's trying to get by, just please go on and let them get through.
Sir, he said we could get by if we would like to.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
You have a connection you need to make?
We do, actually. It's a lot of people that would like to get by. Maybe he sees you bullying everyone. You can just let us get by, sir. This is weird. We said, excuse me. Everyone's saying, excuse me. You just won't move out the aisle. What's up with that? This older woman says she needs to get by, and it's like you're just saying no. It's just, ma'am, he said you have to wait your turn. But the guy on the speaker said, can you please move out the way if you can? Actually, I do. No, I don't, but I have a connecting flight I'm trying to make. So can I get by?
Oh, wait a minute, but that's not your concern. If they're trying to get through, you can't tell them, please step out the aisle, please, ma'am.
Thank you. Come on, let's go. Everyone who wants to get by. Excuse me. Excuse us. Thank you. Excuse us. Let's go, everybody. Excuse us. Thank you.
Now the Karens are obstructing people from just getting on with their transportation day. It's just, why are you doing this? On what planet do you have a beef with someone trying to make a connecting flight? That's exactly what this male Karen was doing. TikTok video showing a man standing in the middle of an aisle on a plane, blocking passengers on the back half of a Delta flight from deboarding before the front half is drawing attention online. This is, you're going to just weigh in 10 toes down with it. I don't understand this, Jordan, but and it may seem silly, and I'll let you weigh in. I think this should be hit this male Karen with a kidnapping charge, holding people against their will. We got to go, Jordan, please just hear me out. We got to go hard on them now. They're doing too much and interfering with everything, breathing, walking, getting a connecting flight. Hit this Karen hard with, and matter of fact, since there's something about airports and I'm sensing, yeah, FBI, Justice Department, I want federal charges here. Federal kidnapping charges. You were holding people, you wouldn't let them go. Hit this person hard. Tell me I'm wrong, which I think you're going to, but what do you think should be done then?
I think deboarding, deplaning is one of the most chaotic parts of flying, worse than boarding. The solution can be in an organized system that's implemented by the airlines. Like, you're all going the same place. You're all going into the terminal. Like, have a system in place already, similar to how you do with boarding, that maybe allows people who need to get up to make a connection to get off first, something like that. And you would be able to see in the ticket where, if they're going, if it's part of a connecting flight or not, for the most part. There needs to be some sort of structure there. And I think we could find a solution in a better process versus a punitive measure. But it is just ridiculous. Nobody likes that. And I hate, my biggest pet peeve with flying is when people stand up and get into the aisle right away. The doors haven't even opened yet, and they're already standing up and waiting in the aisle. It just makes it harder for everybody, because then other people start to do it to think that they can get like one or two people ahead in line. It's so annoying. I wait until they're at my row or the row in front of me before I start to get up, because otherwise I'm just getting in other people's way who might be in an urgent situation and needing to make a connection.
Do you not think that some of these people need to be studied? And I don't know quite how to do it. You study them behaviorally, right? But with something as tragic as the CTE, right? You can't study the brain unless they're gone, right? So we can't, But I do think if you have a relative, natural causes, let's say, who was full of Karenicity, male Karen, female, please donate to science so we can. I just want to understand why some people turn to this. And maybe everybody has a little Karen in them, but not at this degree. We've got to, the science has to take over here, Jordan. I'll give you the last word.
I think what we see in a lot of these videos is people deputizing themselves into an authority figure. And that's, I think, what we're seeing here. This guy's taken it upon himself to be like, no, I'm controlling who gets to leave the plane or who gets to advance in the aisle. It's like, nobody appointed you, have no authority. And I think a lot of it comes from an internal sense of powerlessness within themselves. They don't have any ability or even a willingness to challenge systems or structures that are more powerful and controlling in their own lives. So they deputize themselves to be the enforcers of people on the street, strangers, people on public transportation, because it makes them feel good about themselves. It makes them, for even a brief, fleeting moment, feel powerful. And it's ultimately very ridiculous. That's why we talk about these things, because we're just shaming them. Like, there's no sense in doing that. All you're doing is inconveniencing somebody else, but they've got an internal struggle within them that they just can't rectify.
You want to be the captain, the head cheerleader, the one in charge, but nobody voted for you. Okay? You declared yourself that. You deputized. That's an excellent way of putting it. I still want to study their brains. And I think there might somebody come up with a test, put this under your tongue, give us a little saliva, something, and let's test because perhaps if we can get to these people before they're too far gone, there's a remedy, medication, something. And I don't think medication's the answer to everything, Jordan, I don't. But in this case, we can't survive them much longer. Federal kidnapping charges. Somebody hear me. British police to seize $3 million from Andrew Tate for tax evasion. I ain't mad at him. Let's see what's going on here. Andrew Tate could have more than $3 million seized by British police for serial tax evasion. Ooh, goody. British police can seize more than $3 million from Tate and his brother Tristan for years of unpaid taxes. An English court ruled on Wednesday. You know, I've never come across a decent Tristan. Something about that name. And forgive me if you are a decent Tristan in the audience, or I don't know, Jordan, I hope you don't know. But I'm telling you, from Chloe's ex, Kardashian, and any other Tristan I've known, they've got integrity issues. This is my personal opinion. Don't come after the network if your name is Tristan. But this doesn't surprise me that his brother named Tristan is part of this whole saga. Tell you more. Police in Devon and Cornwall appealed to the court, claiming that money held in frozen bank accounts from the Tate should be seized due to serial tax evasion. So they've escaped a bunch of other stuff, but they're going to get their money. Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring ruled on Wednesday that the financial transactions of the brothers were a straightforward cheat of British tax laws. The brothers transferred nearly $12 million into an account under the name of an individual called Jay, according to the AP. Who's able to open an account? Or is this just what the paperwork says? Because the last time I checked, I have to have a passport, a social security. I got to have all this stuff just to open an account at a bank where I have all these other accounts. I am satisfied on the balance of probabilities that they have engaged in long-standing deliberate conduct in order to evade their tax, said Goldspring in his ruling. Due to the fact the trial is a civil case, the burden of proof needed to rule against the Tates was lower than it otherwise might have been. Mediaite with the details here. An attorney for the police accused the Tate brothers of being serial tax evaders who refused to pay on 21 million pounds of revenue on multiple online business ventures from 2014 to 2022. Andrew Tate has responded to the latest ruling by accusing British authorities of outright theft, while claiming police seized everything they could during the case. This is not justice. It's a coordinated attack on anyone who dares to challenge the system, Tate said. This raises serious questions about the lengths authorities will go to silence dissent. Anything on, does Tristan give a statement or only Andrew? Well, we have breaking news, so let's get to that. As of this morning, the human trafficking case brought against controversial influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate cannot proceed to trial in its current form. A court in Romania has ruled. Tate brothers were accused of human trafficking and forming an organized group to sexually exploit women. They have strongly denied the charges. I just hate the picture. It says victory. They took it off. It's a victory for the Tates or Andrew Tate, whatever. It's, I can't stand the Tates, and that's not just me. I don't think I'm alone. What do you make of this, that they're being, and I understand different jurisdictions, different evidence, different civil, criminal, whatever, but it just seems like here we go again. And this is why one of our loyal TYT members says it feels like I have no hope. This is a cousin of that. These people always seem to get away with it. But when it comes to the money, we'll get the taxes. But everything else that they've done, they're chilling. They're going to make more money. And they're going to have more supporters online. Make it make sense, Jordan.
Yeah, I wish I could. I am glad that Andrew Tate seems to have a diminished digital footprint now as a result of all of these investigations and trials. I mean, he seemed to be everywhere, all over the internet. And unfortunately, the stuff that he peddled to young boys distorted their perceptions of the world, and especially women, and that resulted in just a wave of terrible behavior that we saw in young children, ultimately. So I'm glad that his status has been knocked down a little bit. I mean, the guy was always a fraud. It was transparent to us. It was transparent to any objective observer. The guy was just a blowhard who tried to create the appearance of excess wealth. Meanwhile, he was just cheating the system. But to go back to your earlier point on Tristans, I do need to clarify, not all Tristans are bad. My soon-to-be brother-in-law is also
Oh my goodness.
named Tristan.
I
So
stand
just wanna
corrected.
set the record
I
straight.
said-
There is at least one good
Well,
Tristan in the world.
I listen to you, and I am woman enough to offer my sincere apologies to your future
you.
brother-in-law. We found him. He's a unicorn then. There's a good Tristan, everyone. And thank you for clearing that up. And again, my sincere apologies to your future family member. Newsflash, there's one, everybody. We found him, unicorn. I'm sure he's a great guy. I still call him by his middle name, but that's just me. This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed alongside the wonderful, the optimistic, the truth teller, filling in the gaps. Look, you gave us more context on the Tate matter too, and how they affected young boys everywhere. This is why we love you, because I'm able to rant and go off on tangents and even attack just the name, and you're able to kind of bring it home, and that's why I think it's a good team today. But we'll check in with our loyal followers, viewers, and see what they have to say after this quick break. This is Indisputable. Dr. Rashad Ritchie has a day off. Stay with us.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think, is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets, where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for that to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're going to do both. We're going to fight Trump and we're going to fight the establishment. It is not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. I'm Sharon Reed alongside Jordan Uhl. Doc has the day off. And we're honored to be here with you. Love sharing this time with you. And so let's get into this next one. It's another tragedy that didn't have to happen. Police chase results in an accident that killed 2 teenagers. Louisiana, Benjamin Smith lost his youngest daughter, 17 years old. Giselle Kuiper, in a car accident. It also claimed the life of another teen, 17-year-old Samaj Morris. Also in the vehicle, Kuiper's eldest daughter, Paris Kuiper, who was the lone survivor of the crash. She celebrated her 22nd birthday in the hospital, hooked up to a ventilator. She's breathing on her own now. Smith said she's showing signs of improvement. Smith, who lost his wife to colon cancer earlier this year, can you imagine? Said this loss is even harder to take because he believes it wasn't necessary. Didn't have to happen. The teens were killed after their 2022 Toyota Camry was hit by a speeding 2013 Mercedes GLK, driven by 31-year-old Joneka Smooth. She failed to make a right turn, crossed 2 southbound lanes, hit an elevated grassy median, went airborne, striking the Camry. Smooth was fleeing police. She and 2 other women had been identified as shoplifting suspects inside a local mall and had escaped in the red Mercedes SUV. So here we go. What was going on? Were they shooting up, killing people randomly, had to be stopped immediately? No. They were accused of shoplifting. And that's why people had to die. That's how urgent it was, apparently. Let's give you more details. Smooth's bond was set at $565,000. She turned herself in after fleeing from the crash site and is charged with 2 counts of manslaughter, 1 count negligent injuring, 1 count hit and run driving, 1 count of resisting an officer by flight, according to court documents. Is anybody else going to be charged? Maybe somebody in uniform? My question. Her criminal record dates back to 2017. 37-year-old woman named as a potential accomplice was arrested by Jefferson Parish Police, booked on a shoplifting warrant. The other woman in the vehicle remains on the loose. Friends at Atlanta Black Star filling in the details. Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office deputies were called to the mall before they began what a spokesperson said was a brief eastbound pursuit that was terminated less than a minute later, and before the crash occurred some 2.5 miles from the Jefferson-Orleans Parish line at the St. Bernard Avenue exit of Interstate 610. Those deputies were the first law enforcement personnel at the scene of the wreck. They apprehended 1 suspect nearby, as 2 others escaped on foot. However, Benjamin Smith isn't buying it. Honestly, I don't think that the ladies would have pursued like that, like they did, if they didn't have the police behind them. So yeah, I don't believe that, Smith told WGNO TV in New Orleans. Grieving father wonders why deputies didn't just take down Smooth's license plate and tracked her to her home. They were shoplifters. They didn't rob a bank, Smith said. I don't feel that they needed to be pursued like that. And then, for a few $100s, I lost a 17-year-old daughter. I have another one that can't even talk yet. And then there's another young lady who's also deceased. Smith said he will likely retain attorneys Once Piper, his surviving daughter, recovers. I feel like I need to go as high as I can to get some kind of punishment for that because I don't feel that should have happened, said Smith. The JPSO's internal affairs is likely to investigate if its deputies follow the Orleans Parish rules. So they're going to investigate themselves. Got it. It's a throwaway. They also want to determine whether the pursuing deputies knew what the suspects were wanted for. Okay. Just stop. Stop. If you don't know what they're wanted for, why would you be pursuing in the first place, right? Why would you be pursuing? Maybe there's a pregnant lady who's zooming to get to the hospital. I don't know. Maybe they needed an escort. I don't know. This is outrageous to me. Either it's outrageous or story after story today, Jordan, has me on one. A 17-year-old, another young lady, dead. The sister who saw it all can't talk, in severe condition in the hospital. A father who just buried his wife, and now his daughter, his youngest. I think he's right to go all the way. Have his grief lead there. What say you?
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. You think about what this person is accused of, just shoplifting at first. And then you look at the disproportionate response and you have to wonder, why do this? I see viewers in the chat already, many of them proposing much more safe ways to track that person down if they wanted or needed to do that. Look at surveillance footage, get the license plate. Like, there are ways to do that that don't put other people, random bystanders, other people on the road in harm's way. And now someone is no longer with us because they thought they needed to chase someone down for shoplifting in a hot pursuit. Who benefits from this? Now a random innocent bystander is killed. And it's the tactics of policing, the recklessness, which is inspired and fueled by them knowing they're not going to face any repercussions. They can kill someone on the street, and more often than not, they'll keep their job, maybe get a slap on the wrist or put on paid administrative leave for a couple weeks. Nothing happens. So until there are consequences for this type of stuff, it's only going to continue.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that we talked about not long ago with this okie doke that they try to give the public until the public moves on. You already know why they were pursuing. You can figure that out in 10 seconds, internal affairs. You have radio traffic, you have recordings, you have dispatch, you have calls that came in about an alleged crime. So let's cut the crap here. If it is your policy to go after shoplifters, endangering the lives of other citizens, then the citizenry needs to step up and get rid of all of you, including your dumb policy, your killer policy, frankly. I just can't fathom the grief this man, Mr. Kuiper, is going through, or the rebuilding that his remaining daughter will have to do, the memory of his gone daughter. It's sick and wrong. And I don't know why we have to keep covering these over and over again. There was a case like this in Atlanta that I covered. A grandmother and 2 children, young kids, on their way to church on Sunday. And still nothing from APD, Atlanta Police Department, in that case. Nobody's going to be held accountable for that, for just chasing through the streets. Sure, criminals need to get caught. I gotcha. Alleged. But at what cost? Would any reasonable person say that the risk was worth it? Some people want to be giddy up cops. Some people want to chase. Their adrenaline starts pumping, and not the kind that happens just because, you're a soldier in war, but because you look forward to these days. I don't know if that's the case here, but that is what it feels like. That some people are just too eager to get out there and have a shootout. Everything is requiring a tank and missiles to them. And that's what this feels like. Two young ladies who should be starting their life and maybe one day will cure cancer, snuffed out for this. And the only one charged with their deaths is some accused shoplifters, women fleeing in a red Mercedes. But what about the cops? Yes, Mr. Kuiper, take it all the way. Take it all the way. I mean, it begs the question, will cops ever be held responsible? Well, yes. In this next one, yes. But we'll see if it reaches the level we need it to reach. A former cop gets more than a year in prison for beating a jailed man. In this case, not just suspended or fired, you actually got in trouble, criminal trouble. Former police sergeant gets over a year in prison for beating a jailed man. Former Alabama police sergeant sentenced to over a year in federal prison with nearly 2 years of supervised release after pleading guilty in August to beating a man in a jail cell. Okay? This was a civil rights violation investigated by the FBI. Do you see what needs to happen every time? You cannot leave it to the local jurisdictions where everybody knows your name and you go to the bar together and say, cheers. You got to let the feds do it. Now, who knows what will be pursued under an incoming administration, but this is why you got to take it out of local hands. Prosecuted by the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. So the local cops could have done it too, right? Either you committed a crime or you didn't. Is beating someone a crime? A jailed man? I think that's open and shut. U.S. Department of Justice announced Tuesday that Ryan Phillips, a former sergeant with the Daleville Police Department, will serve 16 months in prison for a civil rights violation. That assault happened March 1, 2022, according to court records. Associated Press via ABC News with the details. In the plea agreement, Phillips confirmed that after an argument with a man in custody, he entered a cell, struck the man multiple times about the chest, back, and face. The man was alone in the cell, not a danger to himself or others, according to the plea agreement. So, do you know how often this goes on? I question the first part of the admission. What are you doing arguing? You're a sergeant. Why are you in an argument with a prisoner? What is there to argue about? One of you can ignore the other. I don't understand. Now you pled guilty to it. Okay. The man, called only by his initials in the court filing, suffered bruising and cuts to his scalp, face, neck, back, chest. Here comes the civil suit. This sentence should serve as a reminder to all law enforcement that a badge is not a license to answer verbal insults with physical violence and excessive force, said Kristen Clark, Assistant U.S. Attorney General. You don't need to be an Assistant U.S. Attorney General to utter what she just said. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I don't get it. What? What does it look like when you're arguing with someone who is basically got no place to go except sit in a cell? Temperament and who should be wearing the badge. Is it going to be a lesson to law enforcement everywhere? I don't know. Assistant U.S. Attorney Clark. Prosecutors initially said they would recommend 22 months in federal prison. U.S. Chief District Judge Emily Marks recommended that Phillips be imprisoned in a facility with mental health and alcohol dependency treatment, according to the sentencing document. I guess I'm not mad at that. Acting U.S. Attorney Kevin Davidson for the Middle District of Alabama emphasized the broader impact of Phillips' actions. Phillips' assault not only violated the victim's constitutional rights, his crime also dishonored his profession, Davidson said. The purpose of this prosecution is not merely to punish Phillips for losing his composure and unlawfully beating an arrestee. This prosecution is also intended to protect the reputation of every honest and hardworking law enforcement officer risking his or her life every day. It'd be nice. I don't disagree with the statement. I usually like to pick apart these media statements. It would be nice if law enforcement throughout the land would feel the same way about these so-called bad apples, which is infuriating. Of course, they're not bad apples. We have too many of them. The bunch is spoiled. We should be talking about the good apples, okay? This thing is rotten to the core, okay? Because that's what happens when fruit rots. Now, if you don't get it out of there, everybody's going to rot now. You look how much you just wasted. You can't eat this. You can't. Jordan, I like the statements actually, and maybe you heard something I didn't from the U.S. District Attorney's Office. What do you make of what I think should happen, opinionated as I am, that you cannot allow the police to invest? I don't want to hear any more about internal affairs. It should be a dirty word, 2 dirty words, internal and affairs, okay? Dirty words. That every time there should be someone not associated with your community, somebody who doesn't depend on you to be witnesses when they charge defendants locally, should adjudicate this thing with a fresh set of eyes. Wishful thinking on my part?
I think it's something to strive for. I'm with you. Internal affairs investigations very rarely, if ever, amount to something material, and certainly even more rarely justice. So one thing that did stand out here is this person is being treated for alcohol addiction. And I was thinking as you were talking about that, about how people in agencies like the FBI are scrutinized by that organization to make sure that they don't have any risks or vulnerabilities in their character, and in some cases even in their finances, that would make them susceptible to bribery. There should be better and more constant vetting of police officers if this is a system that we're going to continue having in our country, because you're giving them authority where in some cases they're ultimately untouchable, but then no constant monitoring of who they are or who they might become, what bad traits they might develop. And that is alarming. If this person abused somebody, beat somebody in a cell, in part because they were an alcoholic, that person shouldn't have had that power, that authority to begin with. So constant monitoring and vetting and analysis of their character in an ongoing basis is one of the many steps that we could take to help eliminate police brutality in this country.
Yeah. Less, I don't want to say less important, but jobs that have less consequences for people in society have more vetting than in some of these departments, where psychological, you're going to give people a badge, endless bullets, authority, to pull people over, they are making judgment calls. Most cops aren't lawyers, right? So they're deciding what is probable cause and how far they can go and all of that. A normal, reasonable society should want there to be more checks and balances, this ongoing monitoring that Jordan's talking about, right? Just like, you have to, here in Georgia, I have to get an admissions test. Now, I think it's a money grab, but it's only $20 only in this economy before I can get my tag renewed. And driving's a privilege, not a right. So can we not just, they want to make sure that my car is roadworthy, or else they won't renew your tags, and then you're illegal. I don't understand what's this fight, Jordan, to keep the necessary, the obvious from happening, from evolving. What is the blockage here? Is it the powerful police unions and the like? I'm not understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think with most industries, and especially with police, they're going to fight regulation, oversight, control, and the police unions operate in a totally different way than any other organized labor sector or organization. They protect themselves and protect against any scrutiny. And they've worked, over the years in various capacities. They've created systems and protocols that allow them to get their story straight in incidents where a police officer kills somebody, where they can muddy the waters or in some cases outright lie. And they've created this firewall, even though they're a public sector union, quote, they don't serve the public, and they ultimately protect and serve themselves, but they also protect and serve capitalist interests and corporations. For instance, happening right now, Amazon workers are on strike. I just saw this on social media, and I can't believe I'm saying this. The police around one of these strikes have locked arms and formed a ring around Amazon trucks to protect these trucks from striking workers. And it's like, if you need a better encapsulation of what the role of police in our society currently is, I can't think of a better one.
Yeah, protecting the elite, and maybe Jeff Bezos is the captain, I guess. It's nutty. Simply, I saw the same thing. They're walking a picket line. They're just demanding fairness, and they have to do it now. They say we don't want to hurt the consumers, but we don't know what else to do. We're not getting any kind of a fair shake here. Amazon's statement was, this is only 1% of our workforce. Don't worry, your packages will be on time. They don't even care. And now this police element? You're right. Who do you work for? Serve and protect who is the question. This is Indisputable. I'm Sharon Reed in for Dr. Richie today alongside the wonderful Jordan Uhl, Rebel HQ extraordinaire, our special guest co-host today. We're right back.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
Welcome back to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Sharon Reed, Jordan Uhl. We are filling the seat, doing our best for Doc, who has the day off. He's earned it. Jordan, tell us what you're up to lately. I know you've got hot property on Rebel HQ all the time, giving commentary. You're always on, here at the network, which is much appreciated. But what are you up to?
Well, yeah, Rebel HQ. I'm on the main show tomorrow night, hour 2.
Oh, we'll be watching.
And if for some reason you're not tired of me and want to hear more, you can check out my podcast, The Insurgents, everywhere you get your podcasts.
I love it. I'm going to check that out now. It's another one I'll follow. Yeah, it's great stuff, and we appreciate you taking the time and smiling. Okay, you smiled through it. And that when I'm down or just want to be nasty, sometimes I wake up just nasty and I think about all the terrible things going on in the world. And I say, "Yeah, look, you can smile. And it kind of puts me at ease. And so that's wonderful. Let's get to some of your comments now, TYT members. First, about the 17-year-old daughter, Mr. Kuiper's daughter, killed after a police chase initiated this incident. Electra Fried Chicken Dragon says, those police could have let this go. It wasn't worth the life of two young people. This is a parent's worst nightmare. Yes, this man has suffered too much. I hope he retains a great lawyer and sues the city. I agree. Purple Rain Dragon says, that poor man, I can't imagine the loss of a child has to be the most devastating experience. YouTube. Dro Mario says, about the Karen, you got to let people deplane, okay? That's the simplest thing in the world. What are you doing, male Karen? Romario says, this is your captain speaking. Please put all Karens on mute and fasten your Karens. We really have to have these kind of public announcements for them because they're just wreaking havoc. You made people late. They missed their connections because you wanted to Karen going Karen. There you go, full of Karenicity. One more for you about the Karen. Winston 121880. This is the Trump effect in full display. These white male Karens will only get worse. Yeah, Winston 121880. You don't need a crystal ball to know that they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going because consequences, Jordan laughed when I said the feds should get involved and charge this male Karen who kept people from deplaning with kidnapping. At least one Karen would learn. They'd learn that day, wouldn't they? That's just me. That's just me. All right, let's move on to a promising Democratic leader who claps back if she needs to. Ask Marjorie Taylor Greene. Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett mocks GOP for likely government shutdown. Ooh, juicy. Let's listen.
We have seen this play out over and over in the entire 2 years that I've been in Congress. We know that they had a problem picking a speaker when I first got to Congress. And I thought since they held on to the speaker a little bit longer than they held on to McCarthy, that I could go into January knowing that Mike Johnson would be the speaker. But now they're calling for his ouster. Remember why the last speaker got kicked out? It was because he raised the debt ceiling and all of it. And Trump was the one calling for his head. Now he's like, raise the debt ceiling. You know why? Because his Trump tax cuts, this old con that he has, right, that helps out all the billionaires that he's putting into his administration, or at least is hoping to put into his administration, those Trump tax cuts, they expire in 2025. Mind you, he is the only president we've ever had that in one term ran our debt up to $8 trillion. So he already knows he's about to run our debt up, so he doesn't want to have to deal with the debt ceiling. Instead, he wants us to do it. Listen, I ain't got no favors for you, Trump.
I just love her. Yeah, she speaks facts. She's an attorney. She's brave. She's courageous. I think Kendrick Lamar could put a beat under her and it'd be a hit. Okay, just let her go. Go. There it is. Okay. You don't want to battle her. And I love it. And she speaks the truth. Representative Jasmine Crockett said Democrats are in no mood to help Speaker Mike Johnson as he takes heat from hardline members of his conference, Elon Musk, and President-elect Donald Trump. Is really co-president is Musk. He seems to be running things right now. Tuesday, Johnson introduced a continuing resolution that would fund the government through March 14th, thus avoiding the shutdown set to begin on December 21. Some of the more conservative members of the House grumbled about the legislation, but matters started to go downhill for Johnson when Musk tweeted against the resolution more than 70 times. Boy, he's like a teenager. I want. And I know, again, I have one in my house. I heard you. Give me a break. 70 times? It's abusing the platform on a platform that's already abusive, including several threatened Republicans. The posts were inaccurate. Ultimately, Trump followed suit, and he threatened Republicans who backed the bill with primaries. Shortly after, Johnson scrapped it. Mediaite with the details here. So here we go. My way or threats. Does anybody understand diplomacy anymore? It's either do what I say or threaten. That only goes so far before people rise up. Now, we're not seeing that with members of the Republican Party these days, MAGA, 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 but eventually, right? Crockett joined Wednesday's Alex Wagner tonight on MSNBC, where the host asked her about the drama. What is going on in the House of Representatives? Alex inquired. This was supposed to be just a pro forma exercise. They're going to pass the CR, continuing resolution. And it has turned into an utter debacle, with people openly calling for Speaker Johnson to be thrown out of the Speaker's office. How are Democrats looking at this? We're looking at this like this is their problem, Crockett replied. We have seen this play out over and over in the entire 2 years that I've been in Congress. So there. Congresswoman pointed to the chaos of the January 2023 speakership vote. Remember, it took 15 ballots before Kevin McCarthy was finally elected. I'd go home. Okay, I'm only going to stay for maybe 2. And then I say, you don't have Sharon Reed to kick around anymore. You don't want me, I don't want you. Why did Kevin McCarthy, it's still, how much of your tail needs to be between your legs before you just say, this is crazy, I'm out of here, you guys do what you want. Oh, how many times? It was 15. 15 ballots, finally elected. He lasted only until October when he was ousted. Remember, because it only took one person to do it. It took Republicans several failed nominations over 3 weeks before finally landing on Johnson. Remember, this is not like one of the most senior members, Crockett continued. So basically, he had not burned enough bridges. And so they had to go way, way down in seniority to find someone that they could come to a consensus on. We've seen this over and over. And I'm just going to sit back and sip my tea, sweet tea. She's from the South, so it's probably sweet tea, and wait on them to figure it out. I like mine with lemon. It kind of cuts the sweetness a little because, I mean, it's syrupy down here. And she's Texas, so I know she's drinking sweet tea, and she'll sip a lot of it as they navigate this. Once you allow yourself to be bullied, told what to do, give up your oversight rights, and just go by mob mentality, even if the mob makes no sense. Isn't it already over, Jordan?
Well, I think what Representative Crockett is pointing out here is that the Republicans cannot govern, and that all they have done over the past several years is just whip people up into a fervor of opposition without ever laying out a proactive plan. They're very good with any party in the minority or party outside of the White House. Any party can run against something, but it's much harder to run for something and to push forward proactive policy prescriptions. And this is not something that Trump and certainly his loyalists have ever been able to do. So let them get in their own way. Let them trip up. Let them tie their shoelaces together and argue with each other and cannibalize their party. Just stand back and stand by and let them just let chaos reign.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, what else can we do? And I think this is perhaps the proper approach. And I've heard it time and time again in the last week or two, where people who are not MAGA are saying, okay, so this time we've got to let, even though we're all going to face the consequences, insulate yourself as best you can, but we got to let nature take its course. You wanted this, live with it. Live with it. You voted for this. Hey, go for it. Why should we jump in? And you better not be coming after Black women again to save anything. That's what I think she probably had in the tip of her tongue, but maybe didn't get. Maybe the segment got cut shorter, or she probably would have said it too. This is something that I also question, Jordan, why you would want to take that job. You know the deal. You know what happened to the person who got ousted right before you, right? Kevin McCarthy, who, again, when you lack integrity, it's going to come home to you. The same thing you're putting out is going to come back to you if you stand for whatever and you moonwalk and pivot all over the place. This is what you're going to get. But why would you want this job? And if I did run for it, I would just speak honestly. Here's what, you can elect me and I'll take the job, but it's a heavy lift, but I'm not going to capitulate. I can make a case that he's not the Speaker of the House, Jordan, because he doesn't have that platform and that power. He's technically got, I guess they put his name on the door, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, but they probably use that command tape or something. And when you pull it off, it's not going to damage the door. It's not permanent. They didn't screw it in. I can assure you that. Okay. I'll give you the last word.
Well, you already have Republicans in Congress suggesting that Elon Musk should be considered for speaker because the speaker does not have to be a member of Congress. And yeah, I think you're right. There is no loyalty to Mike Johnson. He kind of found his way in there. Somehow they don't have loyalty to him. It is a thankless job. There are always people out to get you, to replace you. It's an unenviable position. And I think Crockett is right. Let them go after each other. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, anytime he lectures his fellow House members, the Republicans, they're throwing spitballs as soon as he turns away, hitting them in the back of the head. I can almost see it. That's what they're doing. They're laughing at him. In fact, it's that kind of thing where you don't respect a leader, and when they're speaking, you always hear people, it's like very distracting. They're buzzing and they're still talking. No one's listening up. They're just having private conversations about what they're going to eat. And do you want to go? I'll go, girl. You can go. You know, this whole thing. They're not listening to him. Not at all. And I will say this, if Elon Musk, if Jordan's right, that certain people are suggesting he should be the Speaker of the House, I do hope that they amend things and have a code of conduct that includes shirts that are of a proper length. So every time he raises up his arms, I don't have to see his milky belly. It's offensive. I find it offensive. Maybe somebody out there likes it. I don't know who. Doubt it. And if he didn't have the billions, I can assure you no one does. This is indisputable. Jordan, thank you so much for sitting here and pontificating and offering your wisdom. We appreciate you always, and we'll be looking for you on the main show, hour number 2, you said. Thank you. This is indisputable. You got it. I'm Sharon Reed. Thanks for watching. Doc had the day off. We hope you'll join us again.